Intro. Hidden Pictures is a book that can use pictures to scare someone, but it may not be the best way to do it overall. It's a book that came out that I picked up when I went to Barnes& and Nobles because it looked interesting. I won't lie, I saw the cover and I thought it looked interesting. That's just how I personally pick out books. You may be different. But the book really uses the idea of pictures, and I don't know how many people have read this book because I haven't seen or heard a lot about it. But then again, I'm not on like the book side, the book talk side of the internet. Maybe it appears there, but I haven't heard anything on the book, which made it more interesting. But first, a quick summary of the story. We follow Mallory Quinn, or just Mallory to keep it simple, as she gets out of rehab. She has an experiment done on her, but then can't remember any of it, and is kind of convinced it didn't happen. But anyways, her sponsor, Russell, says he landed her a job with a family to babysit their son for at least the summer. So she's like, please, I need a job. With Jason, she interviews for the job and is like, if you want me to pee in this like drug test to prove I'm clean, I can do that. And they hire her on the spot, and bam, now she's on adventures with their son Teddy. Mallory lives in a cottage in the Maxwell's backyard, so she usually sleeps back there. But one day she sees Teddy drawing something off, and like sees one of the drawings that he's been making, and it is kind of scary. She's like, what is this? And then he's like, IDK, bro. And that's really all we get. We don't know any more, as kids will be kids. But luckily, Mallory decides to actually investigate, as you should in this situation. She doesn't find anything, and it's like, wow, must have been the wind. Like, it's crazy. Around this time, we also meet Adrian, the lawn boy. Mallory thinks that this guy is cute, so there's your Hallmark romantic story right there. Put a pin in that. But Teddy draws some more pictures. The pictures are now weirder because they're more realistic. Probably better than any of us could draw, unless you're like an artist or something on like DeviantArt. But she's like, what in the world is this? And then it leads to a new mystery. Who is this woman being choked? One of the days, Mallory finds Teddy basically just possessed by the ghost that she thinks is haunting the area, which is named Annie, or really, let's just call her Anya. These photos are really realistic, and then Teddy says he doesn't remember drawing them. He's worried about what's happening. Mallory calms him down, and they continue their adventure, but she hides it from his parent because, you know, the rules of the house. They're not, no religion in this, like, institution. She then eventually comes clean, and Teddy's parents, Caroline and Ted, think Mallory's insane. She passes it off as nothing, and Caroline is like, let's just ignore this one for now. By the way, Caroline is annoying as all could be, but that's just natural, I guess. Mallory then gets possessed and draws on the wall, then continues on and tries getting to talk to the ghost with the neighbor, Mitzi, who's kind of a drug addict. They try it, and Mitzi accuses Mallory of moving the piece on her own when she didn't, and then she leaves. Like, you know, the seance board, the Ouija board, yeah. She accuses her of moving that, which, you know, why would you? Then Mallory is like, Anya's real. Let's put Teddy's pictures in order. She and Adrian do that while sharing a feeling for each other. Oh my god. Guys, pull out your, like, heart kiss emojis or whatever. They make the order of the pictures, but the letters from the seance don't make any sense. They grab the letter, and then they go over to Mitzi's house, but they find her dead. I wonder why. That's really tough, bro. I wonder what got to her. But then Adrian drives to where a relative of Anya is, and they tell Mallory Anya didn't die in that cottage. She just ran away. We learn like the backstory of Annie. But then Mallory goes to the pictures she drew on the wall when she was possessed and puts them in the order that she sees. She also figures out what happened after Caroline and Ted check on her in the basement. She tells them everything, and that Teddy was a girl when she saw him in an after swim shower. This is when Caroline and Ted knock Mallory the heck out. Caroline explains how she just basically kidnapped Teddy from his parents and changed him from the daughter Flora to hide them from their parents. Then they killed the mother and buried her, who was the ghost, by the way, just making sure we're all caught up. Caroline goes mad and kills Ted and tries to kill Mallory, but fails. Mallory is able to escape Caroline after a possessed Teddy kills her with a sword. You ever seen that scene in Final Fantasy VII with Sephiroth? It's that, basically. 1 year later, after this whole incident, this is like the epilogue now, Teddy, now Flora, has returned to her father who lives in a cabin. Their life is shown to be better overall, which is good, but she hugs Mallory at the end of the story. Close the book, it's over. Read the back page if you want, but the book is finished at this point. As mentioned before, pictures are one of the things that are used to make you afraid. It's usually what ends chapters because that's an easy way to scare the reader or get them on edge at least, because we can think about each chapter like an episode of a TV show, essentially. Only because some people, what I do, is read a book chapter by chapter. I never got why people stop midway through a chapter unless it's like really long, but let's get back to the pictures. In some of the chapters, not all of them, the pictures that Teddy draws are supposed to scare you and leave you on edge. I get it. The pictures are very well drawn and they look very realistic, which would put somebody on the edge, but maybe not. Because it also looked like a cool showcase of art in a way, like a little art show at the end of the chapters, which, I mean, it's cool to see, but like, you never really see pictures in chapter books too often unless they are part of like the story, like in this case. But in this case, the realistic part doesn't really do it for me, but it may do it for like some other readers. I don't know though. The amount of horror you can get from pictures is the closest you can get to the effect that movies and games have for scares, because pictures are the equivalent to one frame in a movie, and so you can see it. But in this, you can anticipate it, so it's not like a jump scare, but sometimes the book just describes what you're looking at, which is really annoying sometimes. Which, I'll give it to them. You need it for some of the pictures, not all of them, especially when the first few drawings are actually just scribbles on a page that were maybe drawn from a child. Oh, that one's going on the fridge. No, it's not. Children always have to explain what they drew before you get it, because sometimes, if they're not an artist, it's hard to tell what they drew or not, because that's just how it is. It's unsettling to see pictures get more realistic, because that's not how children draw, bro. Just gonna keep it $1.50, but we all know that. But I think the main reason here that the pictures don't fully work is because they don't give you a surprise or a like blank image. I've talked about like expectations when it came to like Scream before, and how when you don't know what to expect, it's a lot better in terms of seeing it. Was the super realistic drawings, they explain what they are, which is like, no, really, dude, what? Whoa, that's kind of surprising. You can kind of tell what it is, which is why the explanation before you see them doesn't make too much sense. You know what to expect, so the mystery is kind of gone from it. I get why the explanation or description really is there to make sure people truly know what the picture is, but if it had to be included in one way, I think it would have been better if it was after the picture is shown. That way, if you're still confused, it acts like a backup instead of the picture acting as a backup for the explanation. I guess the story would have a different pace if that were the case, but the thing is, the photos are a visual and a heavy thing the book relies on. Usually, I would be like, yeah, that's fine. But in terms of the pictures, sure, you could get away with a simple explanation of what's on the page. But in some of the cases, like with the drawings Mallory drew on the wall, you need to see them to get the full creepiness out of it. Because the picture in the book also includes the wall things, like the outlet in it that's in there, for example. It's required to see it, to fully understand, and the text makes it feel like a thought, which I mean is okay, but it would be better as a reaction. That's why the pictures can only half work instead of full work most of the time. It's barely ever anything that resembles a jump scare, but rather a proof of evidence, which isn't something you can do well in a book, just because of the format of a book. I'm sorry, like people who read, but that's the disadvantage. You can do it in horror movies as a jump scare because it's moving frames, but it doesn't work in the book format too well. You have to be heavily invested in the book and the story for it to feel exactly like a movie, which is a very hard task to do. So it's hard to actually get that suspense after grabbing a photo and being like, here's what's on it. But that also can be seen as something wrong with the suspense. But to be honest, this book was more of a thriller than a horror movie, so suspense is more important than fright, I guess. The pictures in the book are an attempt at horror, and a good attempt because they're well drawn. I'll give them that. I just personally wish they were put in a different way than they actually were, because it could have worked really well. It would have been better and improved the book a lot, because I like the characters and all that enough to enjoy the book. I just found the pictures more disappointing and not as scary, but maybe that's from the amount of horror I've been exposed to over the years. But it could have been different, and sadly, it was just kind of there. Speaking of characters, let's talk about them. Why not? They're unique enough, and I can talk about how the ending disappointed me was the way they handled them. Mallory is your generic babysitter college student, but not really. Put that in asterisks, but not trope, which makes sense because that's where she is. She's also a recovering drug addict, as mentioned before, which adds a little bit of depth to her character. I mean, I get it. It's interesting to learn all these things about her, like why she quit and why she doesn't drink things like coffee because it would trigger her senses and get her to do drugs again. It's interesting because it's not really anything I've seen before. Maybe you've seen it before, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. But it's always interesting to read a character's thoughts and reasons. Teddy is your basic child character, because that's their role. They're the child at the start and the end of the summer in the story, which means the role they have isn't that deep. Children in stories don't do anything but usually react to the things that go on around them. They just cry and are meant to be seen as an innocent thing, like how they are in this book. Teddy is just caught up in things that they shouldn't be brought up in, with the kidnapping from their parent and the killing of their mother. It makes sense that Teddy would be in this role. They're just an innocent child who is the victim of the Maxwell's stupid ideas, and stupid is in bold, italicized, underlined letters, in their ways of fulfilling the ideas they want to do. That's what they're meant to be, but also they really are more of a medium for communication at some point. Which I'm glad the book changed the medium from communication throughout the book, because Teddy really, for a lot of the book, is the only way someone could get to Anya, who is the ghost. Later, Teddy is replaced with the seance and the board because that's direct communication instead of having to draw through Teddy's drawing journal and acting as like a third party. But the change is good because it doesn't follow a generic formula of Teddy's possessed, what will he draw? And then like you walk over and you just watch him. And it actually moves to solving clues and puzzles, which is good and actually interesting, and the story moves on. This is because puzzles are actually fun. But what other characters are in this? That's right, the Maxwells. Caroline and Ted, the people who may be some of the people of all time, not gonna lie. The most annoying person is in the form of Caroline, and the person with no backbone until the very end is Ted. Let's start with Caroline and why she's maybe, just maybe, the most annoying mother I've ever seen in media that I've consumed. She's constantly trying to protect Teddy from the threat of a nothing burger with a side of empty buckets. It's all for show, it seems like. But this makes sense because Caroline is kind of the person who kidnapped Teddy. Okay, let's go to why Caroline kidnapped this child and can somehow justify it in her mind. She kidnapped Teddy because their parents, specifically the mom, wasn't raising him right, and she had a problem with that. She was like, Buxter, please raise your kids right. But then she becomes a hypocrite, and once she realizes Teddy can tell the truth through Anya to other people, she gives them an iPad, which is what she thought Teddy's original parent was doing wrong. So she becomes a hypocrite and also becomes an iPad mom for a little bit before Teddy's iPad kind of just magically disappears. No explanation. Boom, gone. Don't know why that happens, but it does. What Caroline does might be the most Karen, that's an outdated term, stuff ever. And it's because it's an act to make sure Teddy is safe and all of that stuff. That's why they have house rules, so that Teddy isn't exposed to the truth. I mean, yeah, helicopter parent like them so they can hate you later on. Girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight this child, please. Do it for the lulz. But Ted isn't better because Ted is a cheating husband who always liked Mallory. You know, one pretty weird thing to go along with a kidnapping scheme, but it's another thing to not be loyal to the wife you are married to and also helped with this scheme. I don't know where that would be on the hierarchy of needs but loyalty has to be high up there on somewhere. You know, this is what eventually kind of just gets him killed. The fact that he wants to run away with Mallory is kind of off. It was a twist in heavy quotations where it didn't make that much sense and kind of disappointed me. I knew something was going to happen when Caroline was going to try to OD Mallory. But I don't know. This is kind of disappointing. Ted was like, please run away with me. Please, I beg. Please run away with me, bae. And it was so weird. Brother, he was so weird at the end, which is just super off. Because we don't see him that much throughout the story. Just the occasional father figure type of stuff he pulls with Teddy. But he's just a quirky father who's serious in that he wanted to protect Mallory. Also, don't worry, there's Adrian, who is the generic love interest who accompanies Mallory. That's about it? Whoa, that's about it. And nothing else about him. He's a lawn boy. Oh my god, dude. Come on. He's the generic love interest. The cast of characters isn't bad, but I just wish there was a little more done with them, because some of them just play the roles they have, and nothing really more is done with them. Sometimes they're just generic, and sometimes they just have twists that just kind of happen, and that's just a twist. And that's about it. It's really the disappointing part, really, but it's not bad overall. Since I can't do a number section because there is no place that is super consistent for book reviews, I'll just tell you that Google says 94% of people like the book. That's all you'll get from that part. But if you want a little book to read for a scare or just a cool mystery, I would recommend it. Maybe, like, if you like that genre, even though I complained a little bit about it, you should still read it because you have to form your own opinion. And that's what I always advocate for, forming your own opinion by, like, consuming the media. But I would personally give the book a 7.5 out of 10. It was pretty good, and it might be your cup of tea if you like the genre. But that's just my opinion. If you want to, please comment your thoughts below, and like and subscribe. Pretty please.